Welcome back, everybody. It is now Monday, November the 2nd. We are just about there. Finally, now almost 24 hours now until the initial coverage on all the networks will begin, and only a few more hours from now, around 30 hours or so, until the first poll closures occur. So obviously, at this point, the final polling averages are being set. The absolute last little bits of campaigning. This is the last bit of campaigning you can do. Barack Obama, as we know, has been in both Georgia and Florida today. The Trump campaign has been traversing the Rust Belt as well as North Carolina. Kamala Harris has been in Pennsylvania as well. Joe Biden himself has also been in Pennsylvania. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to give you an opportunity to see the best case scenario for both candidates in this election. What is the absolute best performance that both Biden and Trump can put together? Now, obviously, you know what a lot of these safe states are going to be. So let's start with Donald Trump's best case scenario. What is the best he can hope for out of these 538 electoral votes? Well, we know that in Alaska, that's a state he really can't afford to lose. That's going to be 3 votes for him there. We can expect that he would be able to take the state of Idaho as well as the state of Utah, and we would have to hope for his sake that he would be able to only get this with a safe margin, because we've outlined for you many times on this channel how it is possible that this could only end up being likely for him. Okay, Montana would have to be safe, Wyoming would have to be safe, and we're going to have to throw a bunch of other states in there before I get to Arizona. You could see I was about to go down there, but we're going to switch gears a bit. North Dakota part of the base, Nebraska part of the base, Kansas, Oklahoma, and then furthermore, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and there you go, okay? This is basically already, I've sort of run out of states that I can very safely put in the Donald Trump column. That's good for 126 votes. Look how many states are either not going to go his way or could go Biden's way. Okay, that's a lot of votes that he has to overcome. Okay, we know that a number of states throughout this remaining map are going to go Biden's way. So let's fill those in. We know 4 votes in Hawaii will go Joe Biden's way, 12 in Washington, Oregon, California, New Mexico, Colorado. I'm sitting outside, so it's a little hard to tell which shade I'm working with here, but there you go. 20 votes in Illinois. I know everyone is still having a field day, given that I accidentally characterized that as red, but get over it, guys. It was funny for a short amount of time. Virginia, there we go. 3 in D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, along with New York and Vermont. Okay, so here we go. This is already basically the remaining map for both candidates. Again, this is the best case scenario for Donald Trump. So in the state of Nevada, he, I think, is going to have to try to be competitive here, as they more or less have. They haven't focused too hard on it, but we can already see a few scenarios unfolding where they have to dip into Hillary Clinton territory. Should they lose one of these Rust Belt states, where can they make up some votes? That being 6 in Nevada could potentially be in play, although we've talked at length about how I cannot really see a scenario where this state goes the Democratic Party's way, the Republican Party's way. We saw in 2018 how the Democrats swept the midterms here. Steve Sisolak and Jackie Rosen, 2 Democratic candidates, were able to unseat Republican incumbents and shift these races over to them in the midterms, giving them one of their 7 gubernatorial flips and a Senate seat. And we've also discussed how, in large part, the Republican Party is very overstated in this state oftentimes, and so that can usually give the Democrats reason to believe that they're going to outperform the polls, and only this time, not only are they expected to do that, but they actually are even leading in the polls altogether. That is why, to me, this is going to remain a likely Democratic state. But again, this is a best-case scenario sort of deal, so I have to label that as tilt red. So that's 6 sort of unforeseen votes for Donald Trump. I can't really see him winning Minnesota. Okay, best-case scenario to me, that ends in a tilt for Joe Biden. We've seen again, kind of similarly to Nevada, how the Democrats since 2016 have really run away with this state. Both of them are very similar. Hillary Clinton won both of them with pluralities and with small margins, less than 5%, and in the case of Minnesota, less than 2% in 2016. But in both states, there have been a combined 5 statewide races since the 2016 election. The Democrats are 5-0 in those elections. Okay, so that's pretty striking, if you ask me. And of course, everything happening in the Minneapolis area is only going to boost turnout for the Democrats. So there you go. Now, I also really can't characterize New Hampshire as a best case scenario for Donald Trump. I'll still label it tilt for him, but this is, to me, another state that, even though it was the closest out of all of them in 2016, it's just not a state that we've seen any data to suggest that this could even be remotely close. The best case scenario here, to me, is tilt for Joe Biden, but in all likelihood, it's going to be bigger than that. In all likelihood, to me, this will be lean, likely, or maybe even safe, because this is a Democratic wave year. As we know, unpopular incumbent president, we get the whole thing. So already, this is falling well short of a landslide for Donald Trump, as 223 votes are already in Joe Biden's column, even though 6 have been flipped in Nevada. So the order is taller, no question about it, for Donald Trump. Now, let's jump over here to Arizona. And the reason I want to jump back over here is because I'm sort of trying to narrow down each state a little bit. And in Arizona, what we have is a scenario in which the Democrats have more or less seized all the momentum in this state. Kyrsten Sinema and Mark Kelly are on track to be the 2 Democratic senators for this state. Polling has narrowed here, but this is a state where polling is traditionally pretty accurate. Okay, most people predicted that Kyrsten Sinema would be able to win this Senate seat 2 years ago against Martha McSally, who of course is up again. Again, very unpopular numbers for Donald Trump. Maricopa County, which is the vast majority of the population of the state of Arizona, it can sometimes go red. In fact, it actually did go red in 2016, which is rare for an urban area in the United States, especially one that's growing at the rate that Phoenix is. But to this time, with 1 day to go, you can fully expect that this, to me, will go to the Democrats, which is why I think in a best case scenario, though, I think Donald Trump has a possible chance of flipping this back only if Martha McSally is really suddenly going to outperform the polls. I don't know that you have to say that the only way Trump can win is if McSally wins. I think that I don't think those two things have to be true at the same time. But if Trump is going to win Arizona, the numbers have to be widely skewed. And in this state, the polling has to just be completely wrong. And you're going to start to see a trend of that over the course of this video, is that the polls just have to be very, very wrong, far more incorrect than they were in 2016, which obviously spells major, major trouble for Donald Trump and the Republicans. Okay, so in a best case scenario, he can squeak by and hang on to these 11 votes in Arizona while also picking up 6 in Nevada. All right, and so that pretty much puts Joe Biden in a tough position, because at that point, you're now asking him to flip a certain amount of states while also losing 6 in Nevada. So he not only has to flip back some of those Rust Belt states, potentially Florida, whatnot, but you're also making Florida a little bit more of a necessity for Joe Biden than it was beforehand. Florida was more of a necessity for Donald Trump, but now that Arizona has remained in the Republican column and Nevada has surprisingly flipped from blue to red, now Florida is just as much, if not more, of a necessity for Joe Biden. Okay. Now, in Iowa, we did see that Des Moines Register poll that had Donald Trump leading by about 7 percentage points. We also saw a new poll today, 1 day before the election, that actually had Biden leading by 1 point in the state of Iowa. Another state where polling is usually pretty accurate. Donald Trump has led here throughout the campaign season. Joe Biden has led in a number of polls, but has never been able to take the polling advantage. This is going to be probably, in my opinion, this is going to be the closest Senate race in the entire country between Theresa Greenfield and Joni Ernst. Okay, this is going to be so, so close. I think Theresa Greenfield, the Democrat, has a tiny, tiny edge at the moment over Joni Ernst. I wouldn't be surprised if either of them won. I just think that Joni Ernst should be the teeniest of favorites at the moment, okay? But I don't think Donald Trump really has the ability to afford to be worried about this state. Only in this scenario, this is a little bit of a loss for Joe Biden because 6 votes, this could have sort of offset that a little bit, and while it would have been disappointing for him in that he wasn't able to pick up a certain amount of votes here, as opposed to now just offsetting the gains in Nevada, that's still where this lies for Donald Trump. He's able to sort of prevent Joe Biden from making up any ground before we get to the Rust Belt and et cetera. Now, Texas is another state that I think the Republicans are very concerned about, and I think they have reason to be. Okay, they filed to invalidate 127,000 ballots, like kind of drive-through ballots that were cast in Harris County. The vastly right-leaning, when I say vastly, I mean absolute right-leaning. It's a 9-0 majority for the Republicans on the Texas Supreme Court. They ruled to they dismissed that motion entirely, and so a federal court motion as well was denied. Okay, and both of those came before right-leaning judges, as we know, federal and state court judges. So that's a blow to the Republicans who are hoping to suppress the vote down here in Harris County, where we're seeing outrageously high turnout numbers. And again, polling in this state has been very close throughout the election. And if Joe Biden takes this state, there's no way Donald Trump can win. So I think he has sort of had to take this state for granted a little bit and just kind of assume it's going to be in his column. That's why, again, this is a best case scenario. It goes his way. Now in Wisconsin, again, this is going to have to be a repeat of 2016. The polls are just going to have to be completely wrong. And I don't know how, I mean, again, it's sort of a similar thing where if Joe Biden takes, the state of Wisconsin, obviously it's far less mathematically damaging to Donald Trump, but it does not mean that he is in any way, shape, or form on track to actually be able to win this thing. And that's why, to me, Wisconsin can be a bit of a bellwether for them. Now, I would say this. It's possible that you could have a scenario unfold where you could have like a 2008 versus 2012 thing, where Barack Obama won both Indiana and North Carolina and then lost both of them in 2012, but it didn't end up really threatening his reelection campaign. Whereas if he had lost, Ohio or Florida, then it actually could have become a little worrisome for him, but that never happened. So Wisconsin, Donald Trump can survive a loss here. He can withstand that. It wouldn't be helpful, obviously, but he can withstand it. I would say, though, that I think for his sake, he has to hope that this is not just going to carry over into these other Rust Belt states. So let's just hope for his sake, again, best case scenario, that he's able to win this in a lean margin just because we get a very dramatic shift like we got in 2016. I am not able to put Michigan in his column, even in a best case scenario. I know that he is here in the state of Michigan for 2 stops on his last day before the election. I don't think it means anything. I think Michigan is with the Democratic Party. I think Joe Biden has all but locked this state down. I would definitely be surprised if Donald Trump won it. Again, it does not mean we're going to know right away tomorrow night, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just means we're counting the votes. But you have to remember that it's possible we may not know the result right away tomorrow night, but I'd be shocked if Michigan did not go their way. So as of now, I'm going to label this likely Democrat because that's going to stand true in both overall scenarios. And already here you can see how, even though this is unfolding pretty well for Donald Trump, a win in Nevada, unexpected, a retention in Arizona and Texas, and in Wisconsin, he's still, Joe Biden's already outperformed Hillary Clinton given these 16 votes right here and plenty more to go across the map. Okay, now in Florida, I think Donald Trump also sort of has to take this for granted a little bit because, like Texas, this is one of those states that just gives him a chance. It gives him a puncher's chance. I'll put it this way. If Joe Biden takes the state of Florida, we will know, I think, we will at least have a pretty good idea of the results in Florida pretty early in the night. If Joe Biden takes the state of Florida, I think it's good night for Donald Trump. Okay, it's possible he could still win. There are mathematical paths. The Rust Belt, he could still win with the Rust Belt. But if Joe Biden takes any one of these 3 states, it is over. Okay, if he takes Arizona, it is over. If he takes North Carolina, it is over. Georgia, it is over. Texas, it is over. The only state that is any, quote-unquote swing state that Joe Biden can win without it actually ending when combined with Florida is Iowa. Okay, and even then, it would get him very, very close, like around a 267. Okay, so If Donald Trump is able to carry the state of Florida and Texas, though, it does give him a puncher's chance, as we're seeing here with 215 votes. I think Georgia is also a state where they are kind of crossing their fingers and understanding that they have to keep their eyes on the ball a little bit and prioritize the Rust Belt states. Now, I think because of where they are in the polls, I think it's the right decision, because I don't think the Republican Party and the Trump campaign at the moment can afford to be focused on these states that are a little bit wobbly, because right now their best chance of winning is they don't have the resources, they don't have the money to think about all these different states like Georgia, like Texas, necessarily, because they know if they can retain these three states, chances are they're going to be okay. And so I think that even though polling has been very, very tight, and in fact, Joe Biden for a long time happened to lead in the state of Georgia, and it was so compelling that Barack Obama is spending the last day before the election there. Think about that. The last day before the election, you're kind of doing what you think is most important for your campaign. He is spending the day in Georgia and part of it in Florida as well. So I think they're making the right choice by sort of closing their eyes and hoping for the best there, which is the same in North Carolina and in Ohio, okay, where Joe Biden has been today. Okay, so you can tell the Democrats are the ones expanding the map, whereas the Republicans aren't. Pennsylvania, I think, is very tight in the polling between these two states, and I think Donald Trump also can actually squeak this out. I think of the three Rust Belt states, of course, the Rust Belt also technically includes, Minnesota, Indiana, Ohio, all those, but, sort of the classic electoral characterization of that is Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, okay? Of those three, I would expect Pennsylvania would be the most likely to go for Donald Trump. So let's reset this map a bit for what could be the best case scenario for Joe Biden, and what, if you ask me, is the far likelier scenario, at least at this moment in time. Nevada would be likely. Arizona, Joe Biden has led in the polls here throughout, and Mark Kelly is in position to win this Senate race. Now, the polling, again, has tightened here, no question about it. And I think that the Biden campaign is actually beginning to treat this state with a little bit, to me, mathematically, this state is kind of interesting, because it sort of comes off a little bit as sort of a backup plan of sorts for the Democrats. That this can be for them, a state that they don't absolutely have to win, but it would obviously be helpful in the event that they aren't. It's basically another Wisconsin, right? It's 11 electoral votes. If they aren't able to get Wisconsin, if they aren't able to get, Michigan, which I would be shocked by, there are only a few scenarios where Arizona is actually a must-win for the Democrats. And that's essentially if it comes down to a tie. Joe Biden would indeed, at the moment, project to lose the election if he comes away with Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That would put him at 269 electoral votes. And Donald Trump, of course, at 269 electoral votes, setting up a showdown with the House electors. Okay, I apologize for the fluctuating brightness here. It's just the cloud cover overhead. So to me, Arizona would be far more likely to go to the Democrats with a tilt. We can expect Minnesota's characterization to go all the way to likely. And then Iowa, I can't really characterize for Joe Biden, though it is definitely possible. I would be surprised, though. I think you're going to get some split ticket voters here. I think Joni Ernst, voters just don't like her there. She's not popular. Teresa Greenfield's run a good campaign. I think she is going to edge that race out. And I also think Donald Trump is going to edge that race out, with Joe Biden getting around 48% of the vote. Texas is a real possibility. And I think that that Joe Biden can indeed win this state. It would only be mildly surprising at this point. This is a swing state that has a teeny tilt towards the Republicans. It is the exact same as Georgia. The polling is the same, the momentum is the same, the approval ratings are the same. Joe Biden is popular down here in this state. A lot of money has been poured into this state. The Democrats have been campaigning down there recently. Joe Biden can win the state of Texas. Okay, I'd give him maybe a 1 in 3 chance of flipping this state. It's basically the same to me as Georgia. Florida is another state that Joe Biden has as good, if not a slightly better chance of winning than Donald Trump. It is a state that he and Barack Obama carried 2 different times in 2008 and 2012. He's on the ballot again, okay? The only reason I think that the Democrats are so worried about this is because this state broke their hearts in the 2018 midterms when Bill Nelson and Andrew Gillum both lost their elections, okay? And in the case of Bill Nelson, that was a pretty rough defeat for the Democrats in the Senate. If they had one more Senate seat going into these elections, they would be a shoo-in to flip the United States Senate. So you can already see this number is growing here with 323. And again, the polling, if anything, shows Joe Biden is narrowly ahead in the state of Florida, just as Georgia could very well go their way as well. And now you're starting to get into landslide territory. This is already 4 flips, including 2 of the 4 biggest states, those being Texas and Florida, the 2 biggest Republican-based states, one of which, of course, the Democrats can have plenty of success in over the years. North Carolina, another state that the polling has widened in. It has, okay? And it's a bit of a bellwether state to me as well. Should Joe Biden take the state of North Carolina, you have to imagine that voters in Arizona, because they're kind of similar voting blocks actually, you have to imagine that the voters in Arizona would go a certain way. That's 26 electoral votes right there, pushing Joe Biden's total all the way to 258, only counting Hillary Clinton's base states, basically putting him 1 state away, unless that state is Wisconsin. Okay, speaking of Wisconsin, once I find my mouse here and characterize this a certain way, I've said it all along. I'm not sure Wisconsin, I'm not sure Donald Trump really has much of a chance at all to take this state right now. The polling has been lopsided here. If you applied the same shift in the voting to this state from 4 years ago, Joe Biden still carries it. The Democrats did very well here in the midterms in 2018. Scott Walker lost that election. That was a big win for the Democrats. Okay, this is a big number that we're seeing here, 364 electoral votes. I have to mention Maine as well, because we pretty much know exactly how that one's going to vote. And then there's also this. The Omaha area, Omaha and Lincoln, another vote for Joe Biden. Now, I think Donald Trump, it was interesting that he spent the day campaigning in that district before we saw a bunch of people have to be transported to the hospital after being left in freezing temperatures. But that's the point you get there. That's 3 more votes for Joe Biden. And lastly, I think it's possible that he can carry the state of Ohio. It has been very, very close here throughout the election. Donald Trump holds a very small lead here. There was a narrowing up again in this state in the 2018 midterms. The Democrats won one of the 2 statewide races in the midterms. Now, that was obviously the easier one of the 2 to win, given who was their incumbent, a popular incumbent Democratic senator, that being Sherrod Brown, who ended up winning re-election. But yeah, I mean, they can win here, and Joe Biden is spending his last day in Ohio, okay, which I think is also a general Rust Belt ploy. And then lastly, Pennsylvania. He is from this area, Scrappy Scranton Joe. This is the best case scenario. 406 to 132. That is a landslide. Okay, anything over 400 is a landslide. Okay, he flips Arizona, Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and a vote in Nebraska. Okay, that is the state of this race with 1 day on the clock. With polls closing tomorrow, with voting ending tomorrow, okay, and with counting consummating tomorrow, I should say. There you go. Okay. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona, and a win in a vote in Nebraska, a narrow loss in Iowa, right? Somewhat narrow losses in Mississippi and Alabama as well, okay? That's the state of the race. That's the state of the race. Donald Trump can win. And I just want to say, though, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments pointing out, well, he's going to win this state and he's going to win that state. Well, let's point out, let's give him some. Let's give him 38 votes, for goodness sake, in Texas. It's not even close. 368 to 170. Let's also give him Florida. It's still not even close. And I just gave him Texas and Florida, 2 of the biggest states on the entire board. Okay? I would say the likeliest one from here to go would be Georgia. 215. It's closer, but it's still not that close. It's not as close as it was in 16. Let's give him North Carolina. Nope. 230. Still not as close as 2016. Only now it is, and it's now only now it is closer, and I just gave him 5 states back. Okay? So that's the state of this race right now, and I definitely hope that, when everyone comes back to this channel after the election, you understand that, again, polling isn't perfect, but it is the best indicator that we have. It is a snapshot in time of what voters are planning to do. And there is a margin of error for a reason. It is basic statistics and probabilities. Okay, it does not mean polling is incorrect. It does not mean it was done improperly. It just means that sometimes the outlier wins. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please comment down the suggestions below. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We're going to be coming out with our final Senate election prediction video, and of course, stay tuned for after the election and throughout the rest of the week for some analysis as we continue to go on. There's always election stuff to break down, even though after tomorrow, basically, we will not be any longer in an election season. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me throughout the season.